Okay, we're going to kick off, everyone. We're just a minute over. You've probably just noticed that a note has gone in that this meeting will be recorded. So I hope that's okay for everybody. That's to help all of us understand what's been shared today, and therefore it can also be shared with others. Please put your name and your role, as others have started to do, in the chat box. Really great to introduce yourself in that way. Welcome to this afternoon session. I'm Phil Shelley. I'm Senior Operational Manager in NHS England and responsible for food and a number of other duties. And this is a very special occasion, as you can see from the agenda on our screens right now. We've got an opportunity to share the messaging around a children's and young persons project, particularly today around parents and carers food provision. And we've got 15 sites that are joining us on this call. We've also got several colleagues that are linked to the food industry. We have Hospital Catering Association Chair joining us as well today. So welcome to everybody. What I must say is that this has only been made possible through the leadership of Charlotte Farrell, and following the bravery of Sophie Farrell, her daughter, we can actually celebrate creating change with Sophie's legacy. And today there are a number of focus points which will be spoken about much more correctly by Charlotte in a few minutes' time, and also our Chief Nursing Officer Ruth May. And a massive thanks to you, Ruth, for being here. Before we do that, the team from NHS England have been incredibly privileged to have such an involvement. Helen Ben and Sarah Berry, who are on the call today, and fortunately for me, they're in control of things. They have guided us through the demands of programme management. We've also had Noella and Sophie from our communications team that have helped us to, again, work our way through the right ways of distributing that communication out. I also publicly want to thank Kate Pye. Kate worked with us in NHS England. She's now at Gosh. Gosh are also represented today. Her energy in this programme helped us to maintain our ambitions, working with Charlotte and Ruth and myself. And we're incredibly proud that we're in this position right now. We've got 3 presentations that we want to share the learnings of today, as you can see on the screen. We've also got an overview of the roadmap so people understand what we're trying to do, those key dates and the meetings. So again, a massive thank you for attending. To have a programme like this, you need a sponsorship at the very highest level. We're delighted that Ruth is doing this for us. She's here to share her thoughts with us today. So hopefully we'll just spend a few minutes with Ruth now and she'll share her thoughts. So over to you, Ruth. Thank you.
Hello, everybody, and nice to see you all. And thank you for showing your commitment to Sophie's legacy. Now, I had the privilege of hearing about Sophie's story through a patient story at our quality committee. So each quality committee starts with a patient story, and this was one of the stories that really got my heart and therefore applied my head to join my heart in how I support Charlotte, implement and recognise Sophie's bucket list. Now, Charlotte is going to tell you the story about Sophie. But I was really pleased the way that Phil and Kate was our head of children's nursing, now she's the deputy chief nurse at Gosh, really came and actually they did the work. All I did was be able to use my voice and use my voice for commitment. But I was yesterday in Hull listening to colleagues tell me about their neonatal service. And actually, they were applying Sophie's learning and Sophie's story. Now, I'm sure Charlotte will go on to say about the food, but it isn't just about food for me. It is also the other half of Sophie's legacy around play and making sure we've got play therapists 7 days a week. So all I wanted to say is thank you. Thank you hugely for being part of this improvement journey. Thank you for your commitment to implement Sophie's bucket list. But also, if you can, just think about the power of the patient story, because this has happened because the power of a patient story. I'll leave it there, but it's a privilege to be here.
Thank you, Ruth. And I think the only thing that we've picked up, we had some pilots, didn't we, last year that we ran through. And I think for us as a team, the only thing I think I could ask from you on your messaging really is that this opportunity doesn't come along very often, does it? You know, the working relationship with a charity giving us that chance to really make a difference. But how important is it for you that this is used as a springboard, you know, rather than a short-term solution and then it moves on?
Absolutely. So I see this as something that we should be doing as business as usual for everyone. But in order to get there, very grateful for the charity to support us to get there. But it also needs leaders in the system that makes that a reality. And that's why I'm grateful to everybody on this call that will help us to get there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ruth. And Charlotte, this is your chance to share, particularly for those people that haven't understood, you know, what you've gone through as a family, but the way that you've bravely shared, either in conferences with a number of us, but on calls, and also the way you've worked with the politicians to actually try and, you know, strengthen this chance. So thank you for being here. Can I ask that you just share your presentation with us? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Phil. So hopefully we've got my presentation. It's all going to go to plan. This is where IT hopefully comes good. So if we go to the next slide, please, Helen. So my family was probably like many others in this country. I worked hard all my life. I qualified as a social worker, children's social worker at 21, and worked for local authorities in children's services. I married in my mid-20s, and we had 3 daughters, which you can see in the picture. We brought them up to be healthy, work hard, and be kind to others, but also be grateful for what we have. We appreciated time together as a family, and holidays were often the highlight of the year for us. My daughters had the common illnesses, as children do, but they didn't have any long-term illnesses that required being in hospital. Sophie had actually never spent one single night in hospital prior to becoming unwell. The COVID, as we know, hit the country, and we all went into lockdown in the March 20. For us as a family, we actually got to spend some really good quality time together away from life stresses. But then in the summer of that year, Sophie became unwell, complaining of tummy pains, feeling sick, struggling to eat, and then she started bleeding. I went back and forward contacting our GP, but I was told it was many other things, from indigestion to a bowel infection to her first period. Bearing in mind she had just turned 9 in the August. As a mum, I just knew something wasn't right. So on the 5th of September 2020, I took Sophie to A&E and said, I don't know what is wrong with her, but I know that something is. The doctor felt her tummy, and these words will haunt me forever, but when they said how long she had this lump for. We go to the next slide, please. I answered, what lump? And what they found was a 12-centimetre tumour in her abdomen. Her own GP had only felt her tummy 3 weeks previously, and here I was being told that my 9-year-old daughter had a huge tumour in her body. We were transferred to Southampton Hospital the next day for surgery, to remove the tumour, which at that point they didn't know whether it was benign or cancerous. On the 10th of September, Sophie had major surgery, and the very skilled surgeons managed to remove 95% of the tumour, which you can see in that picture was huge. The surgeon came to see me afterwards and took me to a room and told me that Sophie definitely had cancer. I was told this on my own in hospital because only one parent at that time was allowed in. The following week, Sophie recovered from her surgery, and actually 10 days into us first arriving in hospital, I passed out next to Sophie's bed. I hadn't eaten anything because I didn't want to leave her. She didn't want me to leave, and no one else was allowed in. So no one had asked me, had I eaten anything or did I need anything myself? It was then that I realised that if I'm going to get through this journey, I need to look after myself as well as Sophie. Sophie went through 9 rounds of very aggressive inpatient chemotherapy and 7 weeks of radiotherapy, which was at UCLH in London. Throughout this whole journey, we spent so much time in hospital for treatment or for the fallout of that treatment, often rushing in the middle of the night because Sophie's temperature spiked, or other things that resulted in us not having a planned stay. It was during all of these times of being in hospital that access to food became so difficult and such a challenge for us. When in London for 7 weeks on my own, nothing in the hospital was open to parents. To access food, I had to walk down the street trying to find a shop open to grab something. Sophie hated me leaving her. She was scared, frightened, and alone. Bearing in mind, she had never spent a night in hospital prior to being in with cancer. Now imagine this was you. See, I was just like most families. And yet here I was in a hospital room with my child, being her main carer, staying overnight with her for weeks on end, yet having no access to any food in hospital unless I brought it in myself. Remember me saying that I'd worked hard all my life? Well, when Sophie was diagnosed, I was offered 16 weeks unpaid off, as it was my child that was unwell and not myself. I ended up having to resign, so as a family, we had lost a whole income. So not only did I have to try and access food in hospital unless I bought it in myself, but we now had the financial pressures of making ends meet, being on one income, and yet our expenditure had gone up because it was effectively like running 2 homes. We go to the next slide, please. Sophie went through all of her treatment, which was with the most positive attitude. She even painted ceramics to raise £6,000 to buy toys for the hospital, as she saw that they didn't have much in there and knew that they had to find them the money themselves in order to buy any. Sophie firmly believed that doctors were going to make her better. But sadly, whilst on treatment in June of 21, during a routine MRI, Sophie relapsed with a brand new tumour in the area that had had the most amount of treatment. Her body by this point was battered by the treatment. And it was now, we were told, only about getting her, biding us time rather than ever getting her cured. Sophie was a very bright and mature girl, and we were honest about her throughout the whole journey. We tried one palliative chemo to try and hold the cancer, but it didn't work. So in July of 21, only 10 months from being diagnosed, we made the decision with Sophie to stop treatment. Sophie was tired and wanted to be out of hospital. So she decided to write a bucket list, like you do, age 9, of things that she wanted to do in the time that she had left. But what made her list really different is that she wrote some things on there that she wanted to be achieved once she had gone. She knew she was never going to see these changes, but maybe promise her in her final weeks that I would do this for her. And Sophie sadly died on the 18th of September 21, having just turned 10. We go to the next slide. Sophie was really passionate about parents being fed. She could never understand why I wasn't fed when I was in there. She would say, "Mum, you have no choice to be here. You're here because I'm unwell. So why are they not feeding you?" Sophie was right. The journeys that so many parents in hospital with their child have is often traumatic, stressful, often an emergency, and yet there is no focus on ensuring the adult staying overnight next to their child has food. Just think how this would be if it was you. Think about your hospital and how easy or hard it is to access food. I've heard of so many stories of parents not eating for days on end, taking food off their child's plate because they're so hungry, getting into debt to buy food in hospital, buying a loaf of bread and packets of crisps so they can eat crisp sandwiches for a few days because it's better than not eating anything at all. Or for the parent who was diabetic and nearly became a patient herself because she wasn't eating. These are just a few of thousands of stories of around the country of parents in hospital, potentially right now in your hospital. The pictures in this on this PowerPoint are ones that I took when I was in with Sophie. Sophie couldn't stand the smell of food because of her chemo. So I would often have to eat in the ensuite because there was nowhere else to go as the parents' room was closed. Eating on top of a bin in a bathroom whilst my child had cancer. This was not what I had planned, but it was the only option I had in order to get through this journey. If we go to the next slide, this is when we need the video. Let's hope this works, everyone. So this is, we wanted Sophie's views here, and this is a video that she did during her treatment.
Hi, I'm Sophie, and this is my story. I have a rare form of cancer at age 9. My mum started a blog about me and my journey. Later on, I decided to make a TikTok account, which I love. I have to go to London for 6 weeks for radiotherapy very soon. Not that much. It's just that I haven't got hair. What was the question?
Have you opened?
Oh, yeah. Because I usually get the needles. Now that I've had so many, I'm not. It's gone amazing. Especially on TikTok.
Are you happy that it happened?
Yeah.
And are you happy that lots of people know about it?
Yeah. And I'm happy I haven't got any hate. Going to hospital so much. Because I've only ever spent one night. No, not even a night. Less than a night. Well, if I'm outside, I would like to. I want to film seeing like someone else. But if I am in the house with just my family, I don't really. I'm decent about school. I don't really want to go back. But at the same time I do. They're very big. I started them because so at hospital I was obviously bored because that's what I am always in hospital, and then they offered me to paint a ceramic, and at first I did terrible, but I managed to sell one to this doctor for £10, and then it just started a massive business. For COVID. Well, I want to go to Australia, but I don't want to see any spiders or snakes or anything chemo easier. As the parents get food. Hi!
Thank you for that. We really wanted to get that in there because it's about the only bit of video I've got where Sophie says about she wants parents fed. and we really wanted that in there so that you can hear that this was one of her wishes. And that was actually recorded in the December. So bearing in mind she was only diagnosed in the September, that was already only a few months into our journey that she was already saying, I want parents fed in that. So if we go to the next slide. So these are a couple of other wishes that Sophie had. I mean, she did create a few wishes for us that we're working on, but these are two others that I wanted to sort of mention in this space. I know this is about feeding parents, but these are the two that you potentially could look at within the hospital. And that is better, obviously, food for children. And that's something that I know the likes of Nick and people on this call have definitely been working on. There's a children's cookbook that's been produced with some of amazing recipes to be focusing on children, and also about 7 days a week play, because like Sophie said in that video, she was so bored of being in hospital, and it's a boring place, sat in a room 7 days a week staring at the same four walls, I can tell you that. And it's something that we're working on with Starlight, and again with NHS England, hopefully produce this amazing piece of work that's already been worked on. So really, really hopeful that that's going to come through as well. If we go to the next slide. So Sophie fought to the bitter end, and trust me, she really did put up a really big battle. In her final couple of days, I actually said to her, you don't need to fight anymore. You can rest now. But she said, I do, Mum. I need to keep fighting. But in her final 24 hours, she said, I'm tired now, Mum. And I think if Sophie can fight to show the world how to do it, then we can fight to make her wishes a reality for thousands of families. Because my family is no different to yours, to most of the country. The family shouldn't have to face the extra worry and stress just because their child ends up in hospital. And then next slide. It's just my details. And obviously, if you're not following us already, please go and follow us. We're on every platform that there is. Unless there's another platform being produced, which I will not. But thank you very much. And I'm sorry if I've made people cry, because I have a good habit of doing that.
Thank you, Charlotte, for sharing that story, which probably never gets any easier, does it? But it's real, and we can we can see and hear, particularly from that video, what a person Sophie was. You know, the fact that she was so energetic and she really wanted to share her story. I think we've got a few people that are asking a couple of questions, and it feels appropriate to, if we can, to try and answer them now. I can't see who that is. Just please speak out loud if you've got a question to ask right now. Yeah, there's a couple of people raising their hands. Does anyone want to ask any questions, or are we happy to carry on? No. Okay. So I suppose the other thing you did mention it, and it was shown there around the play specialist, but it was also, you picked up on around children's food, Charlotte. And what we will share with others is that Nick and the team from Supply Chain have been putting together a wonderful book. It's called More Please, and it's got some fantastic children's recipes in there. We will get that book out to all the trusts taking part in this pilot, so at least you can understand there are other things that we're trying to do that were on the list for Sophie, so we can at least try and up our game in other areas to, one, meet the quality and also the availability. We were speaking earlier on that often a parent wants to eat with their child and therefore have that facility to be able to do it, but sometimes you just need to either be there or help to actually encourage the child to eat, and then you have to eat afterwards. And the issues we get about that, Charlotte mentioned, around sometimes poor facilities or no facilities. You may want to actually pop out for 10-15 minutes, and therefore the voucher scheme is right for you. But then also, if you're hungry and your food is normally served from a trolley, that trolley may have gone. So we need to find a way to have food a lot more accessible, and that means that we need good food, not something that is at the end of the line. So there are lots of different things that we can do to hopefully improve, some of the facilities that we're doing. And we hope that with the 3 presentations that we've got now, we hope that we can get some experiences about what's been going on, and this will give you some ideas, and also share some of the bright lights that have been happening. Sarah from Sheffield, Sarah Barker, can I ask first of all that you share some of the things that have been going on at Sheffield Children's Hospital? Over to you.
Yeah, thanks ever so much. So my name's Sarah Baker. I'm from Sheffield Children's. So I'm going to go through kind of our story, and really helpful to hear Sophie's story in person. I've read it, but I hadn't heard it in person. So thank you for sharing that. And I think what I would say first is it amplifies what we've been hearing from many of our families. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So before we were able to access any of the funding to be able to run this pilot, we'd already started work on a pledge that said we wanted to make sure that no family goes hungry whilst with us. We had stories from nurses saying, I've spotted that mum over there, she's only got a packet of biscuits, and yesterday she only had a packet of biscuits. We know that people aren't eating. And nurses would do brilliant things, and they would sneak food and they would use extra patient food, but it wasn't sustainable, it wasn't systematic. You didn't know who didn't get an offer, and it wasn't caring and compassionate. So we started a conversation about we want to have this pledge. As part of that conversation, we also wanted to make sure that we were able to promote a level of independence and dignity and choice, so that families could eat when they wanted to. So whether a child had fallen asleep and it was 10 o'clock at night and that was the time they wanted to eat, then that was what they chose to do, and that they had choice. It wasn't just one thing on offer. And part of that was about meeting different dietary requirements and different cultural requirements as well. Fundamental to this, and my role is that I'm the programme lead for our work around health inequality. So it was really, there was a strong emphasis not just on people's experience and access to food, but it was around reducing the cost of staying in hospital, which we know is massive, and the cost of buying food, as you totally described, having to go down the road to a shop, and often the places that we have nearby are quite expensive. We also wanted to make sure that it dovetailed with other work. So we wanted to make sure that it promoted healthy eating. And we also wanted to make sure that it promoted sustainability. So it kind of needed to dovetail. And fundamentally, it needed to be financially sustainable. So we're trying to do all those things. The little card you can see there is a piece of work that we'd started, which was called, it's now called Families Matter. And now every ward has toothbrush, toothpaste, sanitary products and breast pads that they can give to families when requested. And they have a little card that they give out on admission. So it's kind of following on, it started the food conversation. So next slide, please. So we then were really grateful when the opportunity came to get some funding. So we were looking for an opportunity. We'd had some conversations with a local sustainable food producer called Foodworks. And they, during COVID, stopped being able to do meals just in their, they used to do kind of sandwich buffets and stuff for businesses. And they started making frozen meals. So they made just meals. And we'd started a conversation with them. But what we needed was some pump priming, because we needed a freezer on every single family at patient's ward. And most people had microwaves and fridges, but we didn't have freezers. So we needed to pump prime freezer money. And we wanted to put a bit aside for working out how we did the payment side. So we very quickly got to work on this plan, and we started with a 4-week pilot on Ward 3, which has got, off the top of my head, I want to say about 23, 24 beds, about that kind of size. It was done on a pay what you can basis. So the freezer was filled, as you can see there, and you can see it. We had regular, which is every type of food could be included. We had gluten-free options. There was vegetarian, and there was low allergen or vegan, which also included, so no nuts, no lactose, for example. So that was a safe bet for lots of people. And because we did it in this way, people were able to go and get it when they could. And we had it on a pay what you can afford basis. I'll come back to that in a minute. Initially, there was a QR code to a hidden page on the company's website. So we gave them a bit of money to give us some food to start the pilot with, and then the idea is that the money would go directly to them. If you go to the next slide, please. So what did we learn from the first bit of pilot? And so if you go to the next slide. Yeah, so the Ward 3 pilot, in the 4 weeks that we ran it, so last year, April last year, we managed to 91 meals were consumed. You can see the different types, and then we gathered some parent feedback as well. If you go on to the next slide, you can see the summary of the kind of conversations and the feedback that we were getting. So it really interestingly, we asked about average length of stay. So who was really making the most of this opportunity? Obviously not everyone completed feedback. As a regional centre, a number of our responses, families are outside of Sheffield, so actually they couldn't just pop back home, and you know, they're coming across from Hull or wherever, so they, and as you can see from the length of stay, some families just there for up to a week and some there really for a long stay. We also asked the question, why did you choose to take a meal? And the most important thing to people was actually the location. It was at the end of the ward. It was in the parent kitchen. They didn't have to go too far. So the comment at the top really sums up what a lot of families were saying to us. I can't, and you said in your story as well about, you know, Sophie not wanting to be left, and they couldn't leave their child for very long. If they could, it was 10 minutes to grab a cup of tea and to get back. The other kind of main thing that came out was actually around the issue of cost and the financial strain being taken off people and just being grateful. That was one less thing they had to think about. So if you go to the next slide, at that point, because we weren't quite sure how we were going to sort out a kind of donation basis, we were asking about cash, no cash, online, really challenging when people say they want to give you cash, because having to then work out how on earth you coordinate that was really just very complicated. So what we landed on in the end, you can see a little picture in the corner there of a little pin pad. It's like a tap pay machine. So we now have one of those next to every single freezer. It's taken a little bit of time to get to this point, so that was our kind of finale point. But we did the test last April on Ward 3, and then between May and September we rolled out to all of the other wards. So every single ward has exactly the same offer. We also built a network of champions, and all of those champions and ward managers are able to order the food themselves. So they order the food. It comes from the company every Monday or Wednesday, and then a team of our volunteers take it in polystyrene boxes and deliver it to the freezers, and then it's ready for parents to take. We had a bit of a launch. You can see people sitting eating. We went to Foodworks so people could connect with what Foodworks was, because it was as much about helping them connect with a sustainability conversation as well as actually providing food. We had a formal launch event. We went around with a trolley full of cakes that were made from sustainable things for all the wards to see and people to connect with. And as I said, we moved to the tap and pay machines. Again, they're on a pay what you can basis. We had a few problems with firewalls, as you would guess, in the NHS, but we've got there now, and we now have that as our way of doing it. So that money goes directly to Foodworks. No money touches our hands at all. We just have the process in the system for ordering it and making it available for families. So we go on to the next slide. I can tell you a little bit about the impact of what we've been able to see. So in that early phase, in September to November, just over 500 meals were consumed, were taken by people. The QR code was still being used as the main method of kind of reimbursement for that. And we averaged a cost there of 79 pence a meal. Now, Foodworks suggest a minimum donation of £1, so our signs say that, as well as saying pay what you can. It actually costs them about £1.80 to make a meal. So we weren't helping them yet, but they're still our partners and we're still working with them. So it's still good news. In the last 3 months, we're now at 640 meals were consumed. The average cost is, that should be a £1 minimum donation, not 1 million. The average cost is still below that £1 minimum donation. So we are working on how do we communicate the concept of pay what you can So we did have some lovely housekeepers walk around telling families, just go take a meal, which is great and lovely. And we have other people saying, you must put £2 in. So it's just around some of that behaviour messaging that we're working really hard on. But you can see some of the quotes below about the impact that people have felt. So that kind of real felt need that people have said, I would have gone hungry otherwise, and just making it so much easier for people. And then just the last slide, a few comments in terms of the sustainability and where we're going now. So the money from Sophie's Legacy, as I said, enabled us to pay for the freezers, pay for some printing costs, the tap and pay machines, and to get it all set up and running. Now it should be sustainable. The only thing that isn't sustainable is if a freezer breaks, and we've had conversations with wards about using their charity funding. So now the process is in place, it's easy enough for them to find £300-400 to replace a freezer. It's also really good working with Foodworks as a collaborator, because it's really brought the conversation up in terms of all the aims and objectives of both of the organisations. They are very happy still working with us, even though we haven't kind of managed to meet that bottom line for them, and they're hopeful that we will do in the future. So that's our plan going forward. I guess it's probably helpful to say when we started this and had conversations with our hotel services, they were quite clear that they didn't feel they had, it's a hospital that's had lots of bits of bolt on, as many hospitals had, and in terms of our facilities and infrastructure, trying to create additional through our current means just didn't seem feasible to be able to do. So that's why we started looking at an alternative route. So that's kind of the summary of where we've gone. Is that helpful?
Thanks, Sarah. And it's fascinating to hear about the efforts to make it work, but the impact, I mean, the stories from that impact is enormous. And also that those conversations, I presume a lot of trusts will either need to have with their FM provider or their in-house, catering team, to see what is possible from their side. But the fact that you looked for an option outside, which in a way was sort of, skipping over some of the issues that you may have if you're in-house. You had tremendous connectivity with people, didn't you? There's quite a big effort to kind of pull everything together. What was the biggest challenge, do you think, to get you in a position where you felt as if you were on top of things?
I think it's that making this business as usual. This is how we behave around here. So we did have to have some really honest conversations with people, staff, really sadly, who would say, but we're here for children, not for parents. And you'd have to start having I'm being very honest here, having very honest conversation about, well, actually, if you want the best for this child, you need the best for this parent. The conversation earlier, we've gone on obviously to do breakfast as well. So breakfasts are now available for people to be able to self-service or be able to get for them. It's the same conversation, no one likes to be hangry, and it doesn't make the best of anyone. So having some of those change behaviour and embedding it into, actually, this is a compassionate approach, this is the right thing to do. We have to get through those hurdles of making the firewalls talk and all those kind of things, and bridge that kind of gap between understanding what really matters to people right now, and how we can be part of that solution. I think that's probably been the biggest challenge.
Yeah, it's kind of asking yourself, what do they want rather than what can we provide? And it's trying
absolutely.
to meet that. Sarah, thank you. Really uplifting, really appreciated. Megan, we're going to come to you now from Alder Hey. So that's the next presentation that we're going to have. Over to you, Megan.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Megan Field. I am the project manager within the facilities management division in Alder Hey. So obviously we look after catering, security, as well as the estates. I was part of the team, myself, head of catering, and a number of nurse and staff as well, who led Sophie's Legacy within the trust. So next slide, please. Thank you. So prior to actually launching Sophie's Legacy, we had structure in place for those who were in need of food and also free car parking as well. So we did have a universal treetops vouchers. Treetops is our restaurant in Alderhay for visitors and staff, which is in the main atrium, and it's a lovely restaurant. So for those parents who were in need of additional support, they were available from the wards, and the wards would be able to issue them out, and they were redeemable against breakfast, lunch and dinner in line with the restaurant opening hours. We also offer these vouchers to breastfeeding mothers who were also there. We were also on ad hoc occasions. With Alderhay, we have a kitchen and a ward chef on each ward. So we did have a small capacity to be able to provide additional meals for those parents who couldn't leave bedside. So we did have that capacity, but we didn't have that capacity to do it for the whole ward and the whole parents and carers. So next slide, please. So phase 1 was implementation. So the offer. We did go down the voucher route, so we did do this all ourselves in-house. We did look at getting some external suppliers in for meals, providing like microwave meals, but we just couldn't find the right supplier and real nutritional value, to be honest. So we went down the route of providing it ourselves. So each parent or carer who was in overnight or for a long stay was eligible for 2 meals per day from the restaurant as well. Obviously, not knowing the scale of the uptake, we didn't put any additional resource into the restaurant or the financial element as well, which was the cash office, who had to take into account all of the work about cashing in and making sure that we're accounting for that internally, because obviously we were taking on the cost as the department and trust. So we launched it on the 24th of April. Previously with universal vouchers, we were at 700 vouchers per month, which is on average about 23. When we launched, we did go to around 5,700 vouchers in that month. So massive uptake on that. And as you can see, the costs below. So how it ran, so we did set up a task and finish group with the nurse and staff. Communication was key for us. Obviously, we've got an amazing restaurant for the public and for staff who only have a small break. So for obviously that lunch period and queuing time really increased during that period. So communicating with the catering staff as well and making them aware was a real thing for us. Breakfast was available on the ward, so we did get some donations for cereals, and on each ward we have a parent bay. So hot drinks were provided, disposable cups, lids as well, so they can make it in the bay and then bring it back to the cubicles. And that was really important for us, to making sure that they can get the drinks on the actual ward as well, so they don't have to come down to the main restaurant. So wards did issue the paper vouchers to the parents and carers for that day, and then charity supplies are donated cereals as well. And it was just a case of us really linking in with the nursing teams and making sure that they're giving the vouchers out consistently as well, because sometimes you get the wards working a little bit differently from each other. So it was just communication was really key, and that task and finish group was really good for keeping everyone in the loop with that one. So again, lessons learned, just making sure that we're communicating properly with the wards as well as the parents. Breakfast is here on the ward, and you can get your lunch as well and your dinner from the restaurant. Obviously, the footfall increased massively, so we were really encouraging staff to get down and get there handy for their breaks, just so we're not compromising staff's break time as well. Time consuming, the paper vouchers, really time consuming and obviously not good for the environment, so that was a big lesson learned. And then obviously the pressure of staff as well within that area of cash office and catering. So that was phase 1, that was the implementation. Obviously we were funding it ourselves. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So phase 2, which is our current offer. So after going to the execs and we were funding this ourselves, we did need to amend it slightly due to the cost of it as well. So we've kept the hot food. Hot food was an amazing response. They really appreciated the hot food, so we did keep that on offer, but it's also affected the run of the restaurant because we were doing it in-house. So we kept to the lunch, which was a sandwich or a soup offer. And our restaurant's amazing as well. It's all healthy homemade soup, so it's that's still being taken up now as a really good. We've got really good feedback on that. And then for restaurant in the night, there's actually a value meal, so they could either use the voucher towards a value meal, or they can use money towards a main meal off the menu. And then there we've got at the end the forecast run rate, which we predicted to be 135 has now gone to 65. So how it runs again, so we've got the ward housekeepers, they come down and collect the dry goods for the ward, so they're responsible for stocking the areas and making sure that the breakfast is available. Charity still supplied us with the cereals, which was amazing for us, and again we just kept that task and finish group going. As you can see on the vouchers below, we included all the QR codes for giving us feedback, and that was monitored throughout the first part of the pilot as well. And again, lessons learned, it's the paper vouchers for us. So we do have a staff order app, which is called Alder Eats, which is due to relaunch next month. So we're in the process of making the vouchers electronic. So parents can get a QR code sent to them, and they can either order food in advance, which they can know, what time they want, maybe a break from the bays, and they can also not pay for it. They can order it in advance anyway and choose what time they want to collect it. The main thing for us is, if a parent doesn't want to leave the bedside and can't, the chef is made known on the wards, and we are able to provide that meal for that parent and accommodate that. The only thing that we probably learn going forward is, due to like health and safety reasons, we're not able to put a microwave in the open parents' beverage bays due to fire risk. So that's been probably one of the main issues for us, not being able to provide meals to be warmed up on the wards. So yeah, that's one kind of real blockage really that we've got from parents, preparing meals on the wards. So yeah, that's where we're up to at the moment. And then if you go to the last slide, which this will have been shared previously in previous groups, is just some of the positive feedback that we got. Just in those speech bubbles there. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. Amazing feedback. So yeah, any questions, anyone, or no?
Yeah, I mean, and if there's anything you think of, please put it in the chat box so Megan can either respond or one of the team can respond. Megan, it's incredibly exciting to see, in a way, how differently you're sort of attacking the challenges, from Sarah, and having your own in-house facilities is, as you say, it gives you another option. We often know, don't we, the in-house facilities, as much as we try and control it, we end up sometimes with 2 sit-ins of staff come down. They come down at 12 and they come down at 1:15. So you're right. You need to be aware of that queuing to try and stay away from that. It's brilliant to hear about the app. Isn't that what a great way of being able to, as you say, you use that digital version. And of course, for me, the highlight is that you're able to order food outside of the normal hours. We often talk about the fact when children come into hospital, we almost institutionalize them and tell them they have to eat at 7:30, 12 and 5. Life's not like that, is it? So it's trying to change the whole culture of our mealtime setting, and that's no mean thing, certainly in the short term. But Megan, massive thank you. Really exciting what you're doing. Thank you.
Just to add as well, just about the catering for our patients as well. Obviously each ward does have their own chef. It's very personalised, and if there is something that they want and it's not on the menu, the chef will try their best to prepare that for them. So it is a really lovely service, and it's really well received. So, and the chefs are really friendly.
Brilliant. Bless you. Thank you, Megan. And our final presentation is from Sylvia from GOSH. Sylvia, over to you.
Thank you. So my name's Sylvia Shegara. I'm Deputy Director of Estates and Facilities at GOSH, and this is a joint presentation between myself and Alison Taberner-Stokes, who is Head of Nursing and Patient Experience of one directorate at GOSH, and she's also leading on catering from the clinical perspective, along with myself from the facilities. So if we could move to the next slide, please. So I've certainly found it quite interesting, sort of just as by way of an introduction, listening to my colleagues and how they've approached Sophie's legacy. So we at GOSH, when we received the grant, decided the initial scope of service would be to provide breakfast and one other meal during the day for parents and carers for our inpatients. If the patient was in ICU, then it would be 2 meals. Two parents or carers that received the vouchers. So we started our trial in March 2003. It lasted for 4 months, and during that period we served 2,601 meals. The breakfast itself is served on the ward, and that was an existing offer that families had anyway, but the offer that we put in was for lunch or dinner, which was provided from the main hospital restaurant. It was cooked on site, and that was accessed via a voucher scheme. The vouchers were given out by the wards. They were given to families, and then this entitled the family to access one of our meals from the main hospital restaurant. Our funding for the trial finished at the end of June, and we took a decision within Space and Place, my directorate, along with the nursing team, that we would actually continue the project. I mean, you can see by the number, it was very well received, and there was great take up of the offer that we were providing. It did become a cost pressure to the organisation. Our meals are priced at £2 per meal. This did not include the resources needed to provide the meal. We actually absorbed that cost within the catering team itself. If we could go to the next slide, please. So we spent a lot of time doing some surveillance really as to what type of meals we would be able to put on, what would be sustainable for us to provide long term, but also what would really meet a wide variety of dietary requirements. So from that sort of task group, we decided that we would be offering vegetarian meals, and you've got a sort of selection of some of these sort of meals that we offer. We have a 6-week menu, and each dish changes each day, and then the dishes are served 3 times during that 6-week period. We then start a fresh 6-week period after that, and the menu changes again. We do some surveillance again as to what meals prove popular and what are not so popular, just so that we can tailor our menu to sort of offer our provide the more popular dishes. We serve that meal in a takeaway container. It's recyclable. This enables the meals to be taken up to the wards for parents to either eat with as a family or to eat later on in the day. In order for us to make this a sustainable offer, we serve the same parents' meal as we do for our staff value meal. This ensures that we minimise any wastage, but also it part funds the offer that we have in place. Just like to add at this point, at the very beginning of the offer, we were serving 320 meals in the first month. We're now currently up to 690 meals per month. So it has been a sustained and growing offer. I'll hand over to my colleague, Alison.
Have the next slide, please. So one of the key things, obviously, is learning from the pilot. So we have moved from the implementation pretty much into business as usual. The menus have been previously reviewed, modified, adapted. We've had quite a bit of feedback from the families. So some of the feedback has been around the lack of a meat option, or could they change their meal up for something else that's in the restaurant. We've re-engaged with the clinical team, so the project went really, really well. But actually what we found was there was a tapering off. People had run out of vouchers. It was very much a responsibility of the clinical teams. So back in March, we did a bit of reinvigoration with the clinical teams. to provide the vouchers. So there are now posters up in the parent areas so that there is an emphasis on both the clinical teams and the families being aware of the fact that we are providing this as a service. Feedback has been pretty much 90% positive, but actually even the comments with regards to the options of different food has been seen as a positive impact. We've had that from not only from the families that have had the meals, but actually from the clinical teams have noticed there's been a big difference and a big change. But we've also seen the positivity of actually our parents eating with their children. We do still have the challenge, like many other organisations, that our meals are served early in the day, and that children eating at 4:30 in the afternoon is all right for some families, but for other families, they want to eat later. So we have seen a significant improvement in both patient and family experience. Can we have the next slide, please? So in total, since the implementation, we've served a total of just over 8,500 meals. It's cost us just over £23,000. Our feedback has been amazingly positive, and actually it's been positive all round. As I say, we've got improved communication across all of the clinical areas. And earlier this month, we had agreement from our executive management team that we're going to carry on with this indefinitely. And at the moment, we're just working on the opportunities as what we can do next. We are currently on working through a programme potentially offering food on demand for some of our patients. And if that's the case, we'll be including our parents as well, so that actually food can be brought to the ward for them. If we move on to the last slide. As I say, our feedback has been absolutely amazing. We do, as Sylvia said at the start of the presentation, we do provide 2 meals for our ITU and our HDU families, and that matches very much our accommodation offer within the organisation. We're a central London hospital. Our local restaurants are not cheap, and actually even buying a sandwich from one of the local supermarkets still is an expensive option. So being able to provide this is phenomenal. We'd love to be able to do more. This is a start. We'd like to see where we get to, but actually just being able to take off some of the pressure from the family has been, I think, the whole catalyst for this, and really pivotal. And thank you to Sophie and her legacy for this, because it's absolutely the right thing.
Thank you, Alison and Sylvia. Thank you for sharing that. So important that as the two teams, you know, the clinical nursing and EFM just working so closely together to make sure that things work. But, you know, picking up on what you said there, as soon as somebody comes into hospital, the costs hit them, don't they? First, you know, it's often the parking, and then it's the refreshments, and then of course the length of stay. It can get to an amount where the pressure just builds. And what this is doing is just alleviating the cost, but also hopefully making that stay. And we always want that stay to be as short as possible, but at least while they're with us, you know, it becomes bearable. And some of the food pictures there, wow, you know, and you're often looking after a range of cultures and religions as well. So your menu choice needs to be sometimes a lot wider in certain parts of the country. So that's a really important point that we need to pick up. Yeah. That we're providing choice, but actually it's appropriate.
I think it's pivotal to point out that our population is not local. Our population is from across the country, yeah, and from outside of the UK. So we have a varied number of different cultures that we have to try and serve.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Alison. Well, I mean, what a great way of helping us understand the programme now that is, you know, before us, by seeing those great examples. Sarah and Charlotte, can you lead us through, you know, some of the aims and objectives of the programme?
Yeah, of course. So this is the sort of a roadmap that we have put together. Well, I didn't actually draw this, don't worry, it's not my drawing. It would look like a stick man if it was. So obviously we've got today being obviously number 1, which is the webinar that we're on at the moment. And we will be sending out forms, the roles and responsibilities agreement, which we'll be asking every trust to sign and return. That'd be really important so that everyone knows between who is responsible for what. You know, we're responsible for making sure we give you the money, and obviously making sure that you know what is expected of you as well. So please make sure you get those back to us. We will be doing an official sort of comms. This is in slight, obviously, we're not sure because of the political landscape we're in right now with the election. So we've got provisional time around the 10th of June to be the official start, and obviously some communication to go out. We will keep you updated with that date though, so please keep an eye on your emails. But we would like, obviously, there to be this program not to start prior to that. So it'll give you the chance to go and get your freezers, your microwaves, or get these things in place, which I know many of the hospitals are needing to do still. Along the way, I'm hoping to come along and visit as many hospitals as possible that are in the pilot. I'm very excited to be obviously coming to see as many of you as I can. We might be getting obviously a few others to join me as well, but it will be really, really exciting to see what is currently going on within the hospital, and to see how you're going and the challenges, and to meet any people within that. We will have a midway webinar between all 15 hospitals to see what challenges have come up, anything that's working well, what's not, and it's a really good opportunity. This happened when we did the trial last year, and it was great to hear from all the different hospitals and actually some common themes that came up. So please put that in your dates in your diaries. The 30th of July between 10 and 11:30. If you can't make it, please send a representative from your hospital. There will be expectations for the surveys to be completed throughout the whole of your trial. We have produced, Sarah and Helen have produced the surveys, so you don't need to go and complete those. Each hospital has their own survey, because we did have the question on what hospital you're in, which we've taken out. And so please don't share those survey with another hospital, because they are dedicated to your own hospital along the way. So we then have the endpoint learning, which is on the 18th of September, again from 10 to 11:30 by Teams. And that is really to sort of sum up the whole of the pilot of how it's gone, what's been learnt, and hopefully then discussing about how you're going to carry this on, because that's the absolute key to this. We don't want this just to be for just the time that you've got the money and the time that this is going on. We want this to show longevity, like the other hospitals have just shared. The impact it's making long term is huge. So we will have a post-programme Teams meeting on the 19th of November, again from 10 to 11:30, and to see how it's gone since the trial ended, what tweaks you might have made, and obviously that longevity. So we hope that by giving you these dates now, you can put them in the diary, secure them, or if not, send somebody else in your place, because that would be really, really key that your hospital's represented on each of these meetings. Have I missed anything, Sarah?
No, that's good. Helen, do you want to go on to the next slide?
And yes, the slides will be shared, I believe, won't they, Sarah? Someone's just asked.
In the next 2 slides, I'll be talking through the roles and responsibilities agreement and the surveys. So as Charlotte mentioned, we will be emailing across to each trust a roles and responsibilities agreement, which provides background to the programme, along with the roles and responsibilities for the trust, Sophie's Legacy and NHSE. If you or your trust have any questions following this webinar, then please drop Helen or I an email. But as an overview, the agreement includes things like attending events or sending a deputy, being the point of contact for this programme, and also promoting the programme within the trust and with parents. The agreement will also be signed by Charlotte on behalf of Sophie's Legacy and Phil on behalf of NHSE, and there are roles and responsibilities for both NHSE and Sophie's Legacy in order to ensure we support you on this programme of work. Next slide, please. There will be 3 surveys shared with each trust. So there'll be a survey for the staff, a survey for parent and carer, and one for the child or young person if they are able to complete it. The surveys will be specific to each trust, so we will know which hospital the answers relate to in the scheme that has been trialled. All surveys will be anonymous, and the results will be used to understand the impact of the provision, and they will be shared after this programme. Again, any questions, please either drop it into the chat or send an email to either Helen or myself. So just to recap before we go into questions and answers, before the 10th of June, you will be receiving a recording of this meeting, a roles and responsibilities agreement, links to the surveys, and we will also be sending out calendar holds for the events which Charlotte mentioned. What you need to do is complete the roles and responsibilities agreement, sign and send it back to us, and also email Charlotte at Sophie's Legacy with your bank details in order to ensure funding can be transferred across. So I think the next slide is for questions and answers.
Okay, Fiona.
Hi, afternoon, everyone. I'm one of the matrons at BHRUT Children. I just wanted to say thank you very much for the amazing presentations, for the wonderful ideas, and just the inspiration of it all. Really, I've nursed for about 20 years, and I just find it really it's been really powerful just hearing that side from the parents. I mean, you go in and say, would you like a cup of tea? Can I get something for you? But how much time have you really spent in that time of nursing, of actually really investing in the parents? And I feel really sad about it almost, but I'm really, really, really keen and excited about making a difference for our families on the wards and making this drive and really having that great incentive. So thank you very, very much. It's been absolutely wonderful, and feel very inspired and very privileged. So thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Sometimes our services and our care principles feel a bit broken, don't they? But, you know, what a chance that we have to hopefully change some of that direction. Thank you. It's really kind.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Malcolm.
Hiya, I've just again, yeah, just want to say that I think all the presentations I've heard today have been absolutely inspiring and really quite wonderful. But my question is around the fact that the 3 presentations are all from tertiary centres, which are specifically all for children, whereas a lot of the hospitals being represented today, including mine, are district generals. So I'd sort of be interested to know whether any district generals have managed to roll out programmes around Sophie's Legacy, and if so, I'd be interested to know how they've done it.
Yeah, it's a good question, Malcolm. We have got a wider range. I think we deliberately picked these because they're in different parts of the country, but also they've found different ways of meeting those needs, and that's more the principle. We'll share a couple of case studies with you, Malcolm, if that's really helpful, because you're right. Sometimes there are areas that feel a little bit more on a limb, and they may have to really stretch to actually try and meet, you know, some of the provision that obviously you've seen today. But I think by having these 15 trusts on board now, we will start to build up that real library of case studies, and everybody then can think, well, this way is something very similar to the way that we need to find. So it will take us some time to build that up, but hopefully over the next few months we'll be able to provide that.
Thank you, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
But I just add, Phil, that that's exactly why we wanted to obviously choose hospitals that were not the big children's hospitals in this round of funding. So that's why you're all here, hopefully. And also we know of other ones. I know of other ones like Hampshire hospitals. They have obviously taken on, they are only have 1 children's ward, and they order with the same time as the children, and the parent does, and they have chefs on obviously within the hospital, and they're able to cook, and they haven't noticed that much cost, have they, Phil?
No,
It's,
no.
it's been absorbed and used as part of the food waste side of things. So that's been the absolute key. And they just believe, again, it's the right thing to do, the right thing to feed parents, and their cost has not been huge. They've just said they won't stop it, will they, Phil?
No, I think there are some places that have gone under the radar, and they've just done it. We were fortunate enough that Kate, Charlotte, and our director Simon Corbin spoke at a conference and challenged managers and directors to just make that change. And some people just went ahead and did it because they felt it was their responsibility. So, you know, again, we don't always hear that messaging. Kate.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a couple of points. Yeah, I think there's people that have, as you say, very much done this under the radar. There was a lot of people that were doing this. I think there's a couple of points I just want to raise. So Alder Hay's discussion around the task force and the involvement. So we found when we did the original review of 10 trusts, we went to all different trusts, was the massive disconnect between what nurses thought that they were delivering and what they were actually delivering. And I think that's got better since COVID, but we've still seen lots of examples of that. So I would really say to you guys, you know, lessons learned from doing this for the last 2.5 years, and delight to have been able to be part of this, was actually get your housekeepers, get the people who actually get to know the families and delivery on board. The financial burden was obviously is a lot higher for trusts like Alder Hey and Sheffield and Birmingham. That's not taking away from anything that district generals are going through, but obviously the bed base is just that financial burden is higher. So that's kind of where we initially started. I suppose the one other thing I was just going to raise, Phil, was obviously there's so much learned from the 3 presentations that we've had today, but also from some of the other trusts that have gone through this. And it's almost like, I don't know how we do this, but is there, you know, the thing that maybe would add value to our colleagues who are going to be doing this next run of you know, working with Sophie's Legacy, is there an opportunity for people to have a platform to raise questions and share, that maybe we could offer the opportunity for people to support with responses? Because, you know, I mean, I thought I knew quite a lot about the 3 presentations, but there's so much more in there than I realised. So I just wondered how we support people from a platform perspective, because it's really key that if people want to ask a question, they can, especially, you know, it's just, I don't know how logistically easy that is, or whether we think about that outside of this meeting, but thank you.
No, it's a very fair point. I got a funny feeling Charlotte is going to keep us at the top of the agenda, aren't you? And that's what we, you know, what we need to do is maintain the momentum. Lots of different things that have been happening over the months. I think we just lost a bit of that pace. Now we can pick it up, and I think that while these pilots are going on, we'll start to plan where are we going next. And as you say, keeping up that story that's there. Sarah.
Thanks. It was just a reflection, I suppose, based on what Fiona said and then Charlotte, about this being the right thing to do, and actually that kind of embedding and feeling like we thought we were already doing and behaving in a certain way, and then realising that perhaps we're not. I think just a lesson that perhaps I should have made clearer is one of the conversations where you mentioned housekeepers was getting this into ward orientation, and every ward was slightly different and did it slightly different and had their admission paperwork slightly different. So every one was a new story each time. So even though we had the same kind of offer, trying to work out who owned it, who held it, who was the champion for it, what happens when that champion moves on, how does it become that business as usual, and how do we change from that? This is so embedded that this is just how we behave and do things around here, but it takes quite a lot of effort to do that. And Kate, your comment about sharing lessons learned, I was trying to put some things in the chat, but I was thinking, well, yeah, I didn't say we spoke to infection control, and we had the health and safety, and we had a fire risk problem, and we had, you know, so there's quite a lot of detail, isn't there, that may be useful. I've put my email in the chat if anyone wants to ping me a question, but I think that knowing that it's the right thing, and then how do you grow that conversation? So this was a starting point for us. There were a few things already happening, but it's rolled on. There's more things that are happening now because of this, and it was a real catalyst. So just a few reflections.
Thank you, Sarah. Helen?
Yes, if it's okay, I was just going to build on what Charlotte said around the comms, actually, because we've had a bit of an email has come in while we've been on the call. So our comms team are sort of working at the minute on working towards a media release, but they're obviously just awaiting the NHS England guidance on the pre-election period before we can confirm. And just working on what we can do in terms of social media as well. But obviously you as a trust might want to check what your own sort of social media lines will be within your own trusts. But we will try and confirm that as soon as we get some further information. And the other thing that I was going to suggest was, if you're happy, I was going to share just the project leads and contact details, put it sort of together on a table, just so you all have that in case you wanted to contact each other and link in. So again, if you any objections to that, let me know, but otherwise I'll try and pull that together and get that sent out as well with all the other forms. So
Thanks, Helen. Helen and Sarah have just about kept us sane over the last few weeks to ensure that we stay on track. So just to finish off, a couple of things. Representation, please make sure that there is someone else supporting you. I think, you know, we often, when we get the half terms and we get the breaks, you know, emails can then sort of fall down a bit of a gap. So at least we have a secondary contact. Just remind you, we will send out also the food booklet that has come out. And again, please feel free to be able to share that. We could also do it electronically. So I'll probably send that first with posting a book afterwards. Just out of interest, Charlotte and I spoke about spending the money as well. And a couple of you have mentioned, I think a few people fell off the chair when they saw a microwave for £1,300. The reason it's £1,300 is normally called an iWave, and it's something that is scanned. That is the right cost. However, we are speaking with the company right now. Please don't go ahead and purchase an iWave fridge and freezer to connect it. We're trying to do a bit of a deal. Basically, we're trying to get it for free, to be quite honest, but whether or not we will do that, I don't know. But we are trying our best to, at least, because our aim really is to use as much of the money as possible for food rather than for the equipment. Sometimes we have to have the equipment, but let's try and take away some of those costs. And it also got picked up, and I know Charlotte mentioned it, there are several other projects going on at the moment. We've got a crockery project, which we think is really important because that's about quality, but there is a big project around food waste. And many trusts are doing this right now because it's part of the ERIC returns now that we have to fill in as an E&F team, and therefore, if you are aware of that, there is money to be saved. And what we're saying to trusts, if you are saving money now, what no better way really to reinvest some of that savings. So rather than going straight into a CIP or saving scheme, can you grab a little bit, you know, to be part of that longevity that Charlotte has spoken about? So, okay, there's a question there. Are you happy this meeting will be going to remember? Yeah, I'm sure Charlotte will be fine about that. If there's any other questions, the emails were shared earlier on, please ask them. But it feels right that, Charlotte, we ought to finish with you. You've inspired us so much over the past months or so, and continue to do so. So I suppose, what's your final message really to all of these leaders within their hospitals, that, you know, what a difference they could make?
Yeah, I think just a huge thank you to everyone for really getting behind this. You know, every single person on this meeting has been a huge champion to get it this far. I knew I was never going to be able to do this on my own. I'm just Sophie's mum. I know people say it's not just, but I am the Sophie's mum who is trying to fulfill her wishes, her dying wishes of, you know, to get this through. And we all in this space have an ability to make this happen. We all can do just those little bits. You think it's little, but it all adds up to a huge difference that you're making. whether that is, you know, you've given a parent a piece of toast and, you know, cereal, or you've given them, you know, that hot meal. I can't even begin to tell you the difference that makes. It is huge. And I know that from a healthcare worker just giving me a piece of toast when I was in, and the difference just that makes. She sneaked it in when she shouldn't, but it made such a big difference. And we all have the ability now, and I'm so proud that we are able to give hospitals the money to be able to make that difference. And we have such an opportunity now within each of your hospitals to hopefully make this change forever within your hospital. And we had lots of hospitals apply, and we had an awful job of trying to choose what ones were successful, and I'm still having some sleepless nights over ones we've turned down. But please use this as an opportunity to really make a difference. I know some of your hospitals have really high levels of deprivation, and to know that we can make a massive difference for those families who will be there sitting there not eating or taking food off children's plates. You know, we have a massive opportunity to make a huge difference. I am more than happy for this, if everyone else is, for this video to be shared. As someone's asked, obviously Kirsty's asked, to be shared within the trust. Please share that. I would, you know, if you want her story to be shared, if I'm coming to a hospital, please use me as a way to get to the key people to share the story. That everyone will know, Phil and Kate know that I will talk to anyone if it means convincing them that this is the right thing to do. So I will hopefully be in touch and arrange an opportunity to see you all. We're talking about the Northern Tour, me and Hannah and my team talking about me going on tour in the north, which anything above Portsmouth in the south is north for me. So that's most of you. So yeah, it's really, I'm super excited. So any questions, please just contact us. You've got our emails, and don't feel that you're on your own in this. This is a project that we're all involved with. So I think that's the key message.
Yeah, thank you, Charlotte. Thank you everyone for joining us. You know, please be inspired and help us create that change. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.